We all better be on our best behavior because the sheriff is in town. Sean, the Sheriff McMorrow, was born in Vancouver, British Columbia, January 19th, 1982. The sheriff turned enough heads to get a shot in the Ontario Hockey League. He broke into the OHL in the 1999-2000 season and appeared for the Sarnia Stings before moving on to the Kitchener Rangers. Over the course of the next few years, he would suit up for the Kingston Frontenacs, the Mississauga Ice Dogs, and finally with the historic London Knights. The Sheriff is undoubtedly well known for his on-ice toughness, taking on anybody, and this caught the eye of the NHL. After his first season in the OHL, the Buffalo Sabres selected Sean McMorrow in the 8th round, 258th overall. And throughout the course of his OHL career, he made a name for himself, and that earned him an entry-level contract with the Sabres. McMorrow would spend the next 4 seasons playing for the Rochester Americans and even getting called up to the big club in 2002-2003, debuting in front of his hometown crowd in Toronto versus the Maple Leafs. During his time in the American Hockey League, Sean McMorrow picked up the honors of AHL Man of the Year on 3 separate occasions. This honor is handed out to the player that spends the most time in the community, the guy who gives back without expecting anything in return. This just goes to show you what type of a guy Sean McMorrow really is. Following his time in Rochester, he moved on to the LNAH, which is, without question, the toughest hockey league maybe to ever exist. During the 2007-2008 season, the Sheriff went on to collect 527 penalty minutes in just 48 games. He fought 62 times in that one season. 62 times in 48 games. In 2010, Sean McMorrow decided to take his talents overseas to play for the Belfast Giants. And this is where everything came to a crashing halt for the Sheriff. We're in Belfast, he got the news that he had actually been charged with conspiracy in a long-term drug investigation by the FBI. Following the news, he instantaneously returned home and was released on a $25,000 bond. Heading into the court date, his lawyer had instructed that he was going to be handed a sentence of probation, but had to plead guilty and sign a paper that he didn't want to sign. Though he admits some involvement, he was forced to sign a plea agreement that claims he did things that he just didn't do. And on top of that, when it came to sentencing, instead of probation, the Sheriff was handed a 2-year sentence in a federal penitentiary. The courtroom was filled with 25 of his family members, including his fiancée, and I can't imagine what that must have felt like. He thought he was going home with a sentence of probation. Now he's faced with 2 years in jail. And Sean McMorrow was released after 20 months due to good behavior. Instead of wasting his time while he was in there, he decided to take every single program and be the best version of himself that he could really be, helping others get their GED while also taking college classes of his own. It's pretty remarkable if you think about it. Most people out there will never have to experience what jail is really like, but it can be extremely overwhelming. All you have is time to sit and think. The Sheriff's life could have went in a totally different direction. He could have spent his time in there becoming a more hardened criminal or getting involved in the politics of jail, but instead, he decided to better himself. And upon his release, he was back on the ice once again, suiting up in the LNAH. Never had one fight in jail, which really surprises me. But then again, I guess he fought enough on the ice. For my count, 470 fights. 470 fights. That's absolutely insane. Being the fighter that he is, Sean McMorrow rose to the occasion. Since his release, he's been on the path of redemption, and just recently he started his own podcast called The Sheriff with Sean McMorrow.